I just had a student pass the PMP, and he said something that was very, very interesting. He said that the thing that helped him the most was understanding the difference between the project manager and the project leader roles. He told me that if you don't understand what each role does, and maybe even more importantly, what they don't do, these questions are going to get really tricky really fast. So in this video, I'm going to simplify everything for you so that you know exactly how to handle these questions on the PMP exam. Now, let me start out with a clean, simple way to think about the difference between a project manager and the project lead. Now, picture a large ship, okay? The project manager, that's the captain of the ship. They're responsible for the big, important decisions like where's the ship going? When will it get there? And what will it deliver? Okay? Now, at the end of the day, the buck stops at the captain. Now, the project leader, that's the person running the crew and the deck. They're focused on how the ship actually operates on a day-to-day basis. They make sure the crew is coordinated, they make sure the work is flowing, and they make sure that the problems are handled before they slow everything else down. Now, both roles, they matter, okay? But they focus on very different things, okay? Now let's transfer that into a real project. On an actual project, the project managers focus on things mostly outside the team system. That usually means external stakeholders, scope, schedule, budget commitments, those type of things, and the trade-off decisions that affect delivery. Now, if something impacts what was promised, who it was promised to, or how the project is governed or run, now that's a project manager decision. That's their territory, okay? Now the project lead, on the other hand, lives inside the team system. They're focused on coordinating the work, managing the flow and the handoffs, removing the blockers, and supporting how the team executes on a day-to-day basis. Now, here's the big takeaway. These roles aren't separated just by job title. They're separated by the focus and where it lives. Execution, that stays close to the team, okay? Now, authority for those big decisions lives up at the project and project manager level. Now, I know what you're thinking right now. You're probably asking, well, do all projects have both a project manager and a project lead? And as we think about it, they don't necessarily have both, okay? On smaller projects, one person often plays both roles. They're making the big decisions and they're helping the team execute. Now, on larger, more complex projects, those roles are often split because the situation demands it. Now, on the exam, here's your important takeaway. PMI is not testing org chart structures or job titles in detail. They're testing which role is being played at that moment. Now that you understand the roles, let me show you the two-step process that simplifies all the PMP questions related to should a project leader or a project manager take action. Okay? Now, anytime you see the project manager versus project lead question, I want you to follow this two-step process. And it starts with question one. You ask yourself, with the scenario, where does the problem live? Is it inside the team system or is it outside of it? Okay? And question two, can this issue or risk be handled at that level or does it need to be escalated up? Those are the two questions. And once you answer those, these correct answers, they'll jump off the page at you, which is great, okay? Now, as you build your skills with these questions, you're going to be forced to choose between should you escalate or should you not at the project leader and the project manager level. Now, here's how PMI wants you to think about escalation. Issues should be handled at the lowest possible level that can reasonably resolve those issues, okay? Now, if it can be handled at the current level, awesome, it stays there. But if it requires more authority, it moves up a level. That's the way it works. So for a project lead, that usually means they handle execution level issues, okay? Those are flow problems, coordination issues, visibility gaps. Now, as long as the team can fix an issue without changing the bigger project commitments, the decision stays with the project leader. But if the scope, budget, delivery, those commitments, the stakeholder alignment or approvals or anything like that are involved, you've got to escalate it up to the project manager. Now, the same rules and logic apply to the project manager. The project manager should handle all the issues that fall within the approved project budget. But if the decision goes beyond those boundaries, okay, if it requires sponsor input or organizational approval, the project manager must escalate up. Just makes sense, right? Now, the best way to learn this is to apply it through a couple scenarios to test our mind. So we're always running the same two questions anytime we think through this. So let's do it in practice. Scenario 1. The team is struggling with coordination and handoff issues. The work is getting delayed, but no commitments have been missed yet. What should the project lead do? Well, let's ask ourselves question 1. Where does the problem live? It lives inside the team system. That's clear because they're talking about coordination and handoffs. Now, can it be handled at that level, or do we need to escalate it up? Well, it can be handled at that level. Improving coordination and flow is exactly what the project leader should be focused on every day. There's no need to escalate here. Just work with the team to improve. Good job. Now, scenario 2, we've got a vendor issue. It's creating a risk, and it's believed that it can be resolved using existing agreements or approved contingency plans. What should happen next? Now, ask ourselves, where does the problem live? Inside or outside? It lives outside the team issue. Remember, vendor issue. Now, can it be handled at that project level, or does it need to be escalated? As we think it through, I think this stays at the project manager level. Can stay there. No need to escalate. The project manager would focus on addressing the vendor issue and managing the risk within the project approved boundaries, because they said they had something defined to potentially handle it. So keep it right there. Now, scenario 3, continuing to build our knowledge. 2 senior executive stakeholders provide conflicting direction on how the project should proceed. The project manager has attempted to align them by presenting options and explaining the impact to scope, schedule, and budget, but no agreement can be reached. As we go through this, we got to ask ourselves, where does the problem live? Is it inside, or is it with outside the team? Now, this one is definitely outside those executive stakeholders, right? So, can it be handled at the project level? If we think about it, I'd say no. It seems like the project manager has tried to handle it at the project level, but unsuccessfully. Now they need a little bit of help. So the right move is to escalate it, okay? They're gonna escalate it to the sponsor for assistance, for guidance, for help in dealing with those senior executive stakeholders. Here's what I want you to walk into the exam with. You don't need to memorize these titles. It's just not going to help. What you need to do is understand that it's not about overanalyzing org charts or anything like that. You need to understand what PMI is actually challenging, okay? So slow down and ask yourself, where does the problem live? Is it inside the team or is it outside of it? Can it be handled at that level, or does it need to be escalated? Is that the right decision? And if it can be handled at the current level, it stays there. If it requires more authority, it moves up. If you think of all these questions using the same two-step logic, they stop feeling tricky and they start feeling more predictable.